Today, our guest is Walter Greenleaf, and we'll be talking about virtual reality and neuroscience. Don't go away. Hello, and welcome to this episode of the CRUZAMENTO Podcast. In today's show, we'll talk about the intersection of technology, healthcare, and sustainability. My name is André Correia, and together with me is my friend and co-host, Daniel Guedelha.
Hello, and welcome to another show of the CRUZAMENTO Podcast. Our guest today is Walter Greenleaf. Hello, Walter. Very welcome to this new season of the show. Walter.
I'm excited to be here with you. Thank you for inviting me.
Cheers. We really appreciate. And our usual first question, in 30 seconds, who is Walter Greenleaf?
Well, it's always a challenge for me to describe who I am in 30 seconds because I'm very horizontal in my career, several different career incarnations. I'm principally a research scientist by background and predilection, a behavioral neuroscientist, and I work at Stanford University. Most of my activity lately is working to translate and move early stage research out from the university and get it out into the clinical and healthcare arena. I work with a number of different large healthcare organizations, but also an even larger number of smaller startup companies, both here in the San Francisco Bay Area near Stanford University, but really worldwide. And I'm enjoying the opportunity to bring both my science background, but also my business background. I've had the opportunity of working to develop several other clinical products previously to help move healthcare forward. I also have a unique background. I got involved in the field of virtual reality technology almost 35 years ago. So it's an exciting time for me to bring both technology, science, and business together to come up with new healthcare products.
And Walter, virtual reality. Let's maybe start with that one. And you've been involved with it for such a long time. So it's not new. It has been improving for sure. However, it seems that only now is slowly getting into this mainstream. What, from your point of view, justifies that? Is it because it's just getting fun now, or any other reason?
Well, it is getting fun, but I think what's really there's three things that have made a big difference. One change has been the cost of a virtual reality system has come down. When I first got into the field, it cost more than $500,000 to have the computer technology to do a very low resolution virtual reality experience. And the display systems that we were wearing on our heads were heavy, uncomfortable, and also very expensive. Now we can have, for the third of the cost of a smartphone, a really amazing virtual reality display system. But things haven't really taken off yet. They will soon, because there are some other aspects that we need to work on beyond just the display technology. That's often what people think of when they think of virtual reality or augmented reality technology. But really, there's a lot more behind it. There's the content that needs to be developed, the experiences in terms of designing it for the user. In many ways, we have to change how we tell a narrative story because we can shift dramatically the perspective of what the user or the viewer is seeing. And we now need to redesign our educational system, our healthcare system, our computer support system, our technical systems to adapt to this new technology. So the enabling technology is arriving here very fast. It's amazing. It is more fun, but we're still trying to catch up in terms of the rest of what needs to go into it, the content, the design, the interface protocols, and the intercommunication between the different VR and AR platforms.
We hear you, Walter, and we talk about ecosystem, and you said redesign the healthcare system, and looking at this healthcare space, and we like a lot of examples in this show. So, which companies are, from your point of view, investing more into this virtual reality space, and how do you see this moving forward?
Well, things are changing quite dramatically. For a long time, the point of care for healthcare was at a clinic or at a hospital. But it started before the pandemic, but it's been accelerated by the pandemic. We now know that we can use technology to provide healthcare at a distance with telemedicine. So that is a dramatic change enabled by technology, and it opens the door to use new technologies like virtual reality and augmented reality technology to support that telemedicine paradigm. The other thing that's going on, and this is quite dramatic, is the technology titans are moving into healthcare. So we have the usual players of healthcare networks, of pharmaceutical companies, medical device companies, insurance carriers in some countries, all as the major players. But now we also have groups like Apple and Google and Samsung and Meta coming into health and wellness and clinical care. And we also have groups like Amazon moving in through digital health and providing healthcare. So things are changing right now. It's really like a major earthquake has shook things up, and we're still reconfiguring how we deliver healthcare based on these new players who are coming into the arena.
And then there is also the other side of it as well. So the ecosystem is quite large. There is the other side of it, and there are some risks associated with the using this technology as well. So as this technology becomes more integral to healthcare, with all those examples that you provided, what are the key risks of relying too heavily on it and not enough on traditional methods of care, Walter?
I think the key risks are that with the application of wearable sensing technology, AR and VR technology, we're collecting a lot more personal information about an individual, not just the biochemistry and the anatomy, but we're getting information about their behavior. We're collecting information about their mood. With a virtual reality headset, we can capture eye gaze, pupil dilation. We can put sensors in that capture facial expressions. And from that, we can derive, and this is good for healthcare, whether someone is in a good mood or a bad mood or depressed or anxious. We can also determine to some extent how they handle a situation. How attentive are they when they're distracted? There's so much we can get that relates to something that we might consider very personal, such as our ability to handle a stressful situation. We can capture that information, and it doesn't have to be in a clinical context. For example, with some of the multi-user online games, we can see people's ability to stay on task or to be distracted, or how they handle a frustrating situation. So as medicine gets better at collecting information using enabling technology, such as virtual reality technology, there's also a risk that people outside of the clinical arena will use the same sensor technology, the same algorithms to capture and create a file on people that might provide information that an employer could use to decide, well, should I hire this person? They seem to have a tendency towards depression. Maybe not. We could consider that dictatorships might also use this type of information to identify who's a dissident and who's upset. On the positive side, as our technology becomes better at identifying how alert we are, it can dynamically adjust itself if we have a cognitive impairment, or if we aren't sleeping that well, it can adjust the speed of information that's provided to us. But there's always
Mm-hmm.
another side to the use of technology that we have to be concerned about.
Fantastic, Walter. And still talking about capturing information and a little bit in the same direction. So with the increasing prevalence of the wearables in the health tech space, there are the concerns about data security and privacy, as we talking about. Now, mental health. This is an area where technology has huge potential, but there are concerns about the accuracy and reliability of mental health apps and tools. How can we ensure that these tools are providing accurate and helpful support to those in need?
Well, I think what's amazing and wonderful about using wearable sensor technology and algorithms to interpret the information from them is that we can do a more objective way of measuring what previously was subjective, either based on individual self-report. This is how I'm feeling. This is how I felt last week. This is how that medication affected me or that situation affected me, or observation by a third person who is saying, well, this child has an attention deficit disorder. They should be in a special program based on my observations. We now can be objective in our measurements. Again, there's always another side of the coin. We also, though, can, to verify the accuracy of these applications, we need to not just spin up an app saying this will improve your mood, this will help you address depression or anxiety or manic depressive disorder. These applications need to go through the same rigorous review process and science-based study, evidence-based analytics that we would for a medication that we were swallowing. They're just as powerful. We need to validate them, make sure they're accurate and doing what people claim they do. It's not the same as just casually building a gaming app and saying this will help you. We need to make sure that they're designed right and based on research and science.
And Walter, just for our audience as well, so the traditional drugs, they go through phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. What's about these VR kind of more tech elements? Can you describe high level to our audience?
Sure. I think what we see right now is for a virtual reality or augmented reality application that's designed to help in healthcare, the groups that are developing them make a choice. They may say, we're going to stay on the wellness side of things and make claims that are appropriate, like this will improve your mood, or this will relax you. But they don't go any further than that, or at least they shouldn't, unless they have done the studies to indicate the value of what they're doing. On the other side are the groups that decide, well, we're going to go down the same rigorous process that we would with anything else that's in the clinical arena and validate our claims, validate that so we can say with accuracy, we can treat this problem. We can help someone who has this clinical problem. So it really boils down to what you say you can do. And as a user, as a consumer, that's what to pay attention to. See if they are using very specific terms that are clinical in nature, describing their product and mention how they know that it works, versus those groups that, fair enough, say we can help with this problem, but it's more on a wellness side of things as opposed to a healthcare clinical side of things. I should say, though, things are changing. I think as the tech companies come into this arena, they're starting in the wellness arena, but as they get deeper and deeper and are getting more and more amazing results, they will start moving over to the more clinical arena too. So you may see an application that's been developed and promoted, like take so many steps that will help you with your exercise, and that will help address, this problem for you. It will help you lose weight, for example. We might say the same type of app evolve into something that will say, this will help address this clinical problem if you do this. So things are changing, and in a good way.
And that's also why you see so many new players in the healthcare ecosystem that were not in there just a few years back, which is really, really amazing.
Well, and I think what I'm seeing now that we have technology such as virtual reality and augmented reality technology, we can leverage the learnings and styles and approaches that our colleagues in the gaming arena or in the movie industry or the narrative story industry, healthcare is not easy, but we can now put a story behind that long process and have it be your journey with people along the way who help you get there and make it more, in some cases, we may want to make it more of like a competitive game. Like you have your previous score, you want to go a little bit higher, or we might have it be an educational journey, or it might be a group activity. We can connect people with similar problems, and we can also do some amazing things that otherwise we could not do with this technology, such as I can capture an image of you and your voice tone and make an avatar that looks and sounds like you, and then I can age progress it. So it looks like you, but 20 years from now. And then I can have you have a conversation with your future self about how your choices now about smoking or about exercise or about whether it's worth working on this particular problem with your health, the impact they'll have on your future self. And so that can be a very motivating pathway to close the feedback loop. All too often, there's things that we need to do, but we don't see the results for 2 or 3 months. But if we use wearable sensor technology and analytics, we can predict what will happen based on what we're up to now, show that back to the person, and they can make a choice based on that information. So technology allows us to just transcend time and provide better motivation for the often difficult things we need to do in healthcare.
And Walter, that motivation together with the customization that you're mentioning and personalization, so it will become each individual's own scenario. That also brings to mind the potential that the technology and especially the VR has in being a tool that push health to people's home, because then they will feel more comfortable, and then it's kind of the entire scenario. And all these can have significant advantages. Would you agree, or would you like to elaborate further on this?
No, I do agree. I think that our home or wherever we are will be where healthcare is delivered by and large. I mean, there's some things that you have to go to a specialized place to heal a broken bone or to have a surgical procedure. But a lot of the problems that we have can be addressed by changing our habits, our lifestyle, intervening earlier, and not having to go to a care facility. I also think that what we will be seeing now is that individuals will have the information necessary to make their choices. And so not only will we have a more convenient place to do what we need to do to stay healthy and optimize whatever we're optimizing for, could be to live longer, or it could be to have a more vigorous life right now. But we'll also have the way to share that information with those people we feel that it's appropriate to do, and not have to travel long distances or wait in long lines to get the information or the care that we need. So healthcare is changing in a very dramatic way. And there's challenges associated with that, but I think the positive is just going to outweigh the concerns by a great extent.
And then when we talk about healthcare, Walter, this has been quite interesting. So we obviously comes to mind as well the pharmaceutical industry. And when we talk about pharmaceutical industry, the next thought process is the traditional medication. That is the primary, one can say, mode of treatments. But we are really curious to hear from you. How can the use of VR, virtual reality, alongside medication help to shift the focus towards a more, let's say, holistic approach to patient care? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, actually, it's pretty amazing to see what can happen now. We've moved into the era of combination therapy, where it's not just a molecule or a medication that you are putting into your body that is changing your biochemistry of your body or your brain. It's used in combination with an app that may complement the therapy. For example, it might be a medication for anxiety along with a virtual reality system that teaches you mindfulness and relaxation skills. So it's a combination therapy, which we know from research works more than just 1 + 1 = 2. It's like 1 + 1 = 10 when you combine these two different approaches. We're also going to get better at personalizing what works for the individual. Instead of having a one-size-fits-all approach where here's the medication, take one of these each day, and we'll talk to you in a month to see how it's doing. We'll have a way of saying, well, we looked at your genetic background, we looked at your biochemistry, we looked at your behavior, we looked at all the things that we can measure about you. This is the right prescription for you. However, we're going to see how you're doing. And the thing that you're wearing is going to capture some information. It's going to share it with the clinical team. And we'll see in 2 days or 3 days or a week from now how you're doing and if that's the right dosage. Should we eliminate it? Should we increase it? Should we try something different? So now we have a feedback loop to both do combination therapy, but also more of a precision management of those therapies.
And Walter, what advice would you give to individual or organizations looking at developing virtual reality solutions for the healthcare and for the sustainability side of things as well?
Well, I guess the advice that I would give is that many of the groups that are coming out here as early stage companies are concerned about their success, of course. They're working so hard to develop something new that will make a big difference in healthcare, and they're passionate about it. What we need to remember is that we're not in competition with each other. That if you're developing new technology, especially if it's using something like augmented or virtual reality technology, applying it to healthcare, the other groups that are doing something similar, they're your colleagues. We're all trying to wake up and the opportunities for this new technology and make people aware of its potential dramatic impact. And that is the challenge. It's the inertia in the system is the challenge more than other groups that are also working to come up with perhaps some very similar products. So it's not a zero-sum game. It does remind me of when back in the late 1980s, early 1990s, when the gaming industry was started. Initially, people felt other people developing video games were their competition. They weren't. Now we have a multi-billion-dollar industry with more activity and more revenue than the movie industry because everybody worked together to come up with the gaming platforms, etc. And that's what we need to do in the digital health arena is to work together to come up with the right infrastructure to support these new evolutions and to collaborate and share information with each other. So the message I would give is it's important to collaborate rather than compete.
And this is the power. This is the power of the ecosystem all working together for a common good, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it was as well crossing my mind, Walter, when you were giving the example of using VR with the medication. Do you have any concrete examples that cross your mind so that the audience can more relate with?
Oh, there's many examples. I'll try to think of one with that makes sense for right now. There's many under development. I would say that I've seen the work of Behave VR is one company in the mental health arena that has worked with a pharma company to come up with a combination therapy approach to address social anxiety disorder. So the virtual reality scenarios allow you to practice what's going on, and then it can be used in combination. But you know what's remarkable is many of the pharma companies are realizing they know how to fund, how to validate, how to distribute, and how to support their medications. They can also be used to support digital health applications that don't necessarily have a prescription medicine associated with them. So we're seeing the evolution of combination therapy, but we're also seeing the realization that the traditional networks don't have to just be a device or a medication. It could be a technology that they bring out too. So it's used in combination, but it can also be used separately, but through the usual systems. And I do know you had our colleagues from Virtual Leap on one of your podcasts earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And that's another example of how one can do amazing things in the field of assessments of complex neurocognitive processes and also therapies that could be done in combination with a medication for traumatic brain injury. For example, somebody's in an automobile accident and or injured on the football pitch, and we can help them with both their symptoms and also their rehabilitation using a combination approach.
Indeed, and Amir is doing a fantastic work at Virtual Leap as well. Walter,
exactly.
It's been a really great conversation. Unfortunately, the time is coming to an end. Thank you very much for your availability and for being here with us, sharing all your knowledge. We talked today with Walter Greenleaf, a translator, neuroscientist, translating the information from academia to startups and businesses. And we've talked about the cost of tech, which is decreasing year over year. We've discussed the ecosystem, use cases, and co-creation of value amongst all the different stakeholders. How health is changing and tech like virtual reality is accelerating this shift. And also, last but not least, it has become fun to use all these products and content. Very last question, Walter. In case our audience would like to know more about you or follow your activity, where could they find you online?
Well, the Stanford University has a virtual human interaction lab, and our website is a good spot to start to see some of the research and publications that particular research group that I'm affiliated with is doing. But I think in terms of the broader context, there's an International Virtual Reality Health Association, IVRA, IVRHA. IVRA.org is the professional association of groups from engineering, from the gaming industry, from the clinical arena, from all parts of the ecosystem. They're coming together to look at how virtual reality is moving into healthcare. And that would be a very good spot to talk. There's a lot of video recordings of that I've given, but also my colleagues have given. We had a meeting last about a month ago in Philadelphia where we had 400 people attending and many amazing speakers. So that would be one spot to start.
Fantastic. Walter, thank you so much. If you thank you, Walter. Appreciate it. So if you liked the discussion today, push the like button below and subscribe to our podcast. This way, more people will be able to find the show. You can also find us on LinkedIn, Instagram, and other social networks. Bye for now, and we hope to see you very soon for another episode of CRUZAMENTO Podcast.
Thank you all. See you soon.
Thank you.